The night before my pinning ceremony, my dress uniform turned to ash in the backyard fire pit, smoke still reeking of melted plastic and wool when my mother swore, "You never served." Next morning, my father posted on Facebook that I'd gone AWOL during duty. They thought the whole town would believe them like they had for 25 years. They didn't know I'd been saving evidence for 4 years, and in their ledger of debts was one asset that could restore my honor, their ancestral farm. My name is Harper Lane, and I've spent the last decade making myself small enough to fit into the corners my parents left for me. At 32, I fly rescue missions for the Evergreen Defense Reserve's Air Rescue Group on weekends and run summit and crew logistics during the week, but in Pine Hollow, Cedar Ridge County, I'm still just Earl and Marlene's disappointing daughter who never amounted to much. The summons arrived on a Tuesday, crisp military letterhead that smelled faintly of government ink. I was to receive my service commendation at the state capitol's reserve recognition ceremony, 4 years of flood rescues, ice storm evacuations, and wildfire extractions finally crystallizing into something undeniable. They wanted me to speak about the tornado recovery mission from last spring, when my crew pulled 17 people from collapsed buildings in Millbrook. I sat at my kitchen table, running my thumb over the raised seal, while coffee went cold in my grandmother's china cup. Through the window, I could see the Lane homestead stretching out 180 acres of corn and soybeans that my parents had mortgaged twice and nearly lost 3 times. The farm that built our family name and broke it in equal measure. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother Kyle at State University. "Mom's telling everyone you're getting some made-up award. Says you probably printed it yourself." I'd kept silent for him. 4 years of college funded by our parents' grudging checks, contingent on my cooperation in maintaining their version of reality. Kyle needed 2 more semesters. I'd promised myself I could last that long. But this ceremony, this was different. This was my name in programs, my photo in the reserve newsletter, my voice telling the truth about what we do up there in the clouds when the weather turns deadly. This was proof that couldn't be whispered away at Wednesday prayer circle or dismissed over beers at the Farmer's Rest. I pulled out the filing cabinet from my bedroom closet, its bottom drawer heavy with 4 years of careful documentation, receipt copies for every emergency deployment, printouts of duty orders, photographs of me in uniform at base, recordings of phone calls where my mother told relatives I was playing soldier or wasting taxpayer money on her hobby. My father's Facebook posts claiming I'd been dishonorably discharged after a weekend exercise posted while I was actively flying supplies to a flood zone. The thickest folder contained financial documents. Their farm's 2 mortgages, the operating loan from County Agricultural Credit, property taxes 18 months behind. Last year, I'd sent them $8,000 to prevent foreclosure. They used it for the down payment on a new F-350, then told the church fellowship I'd refused to help. I discovered something else last month while reviewing their insurance policies online. They'd added a rider for military memorabilia and collectibles worth $50,000. The barn they claimed housed this collection held only rusted equipment and molding hay. The policy specifically mentioned vintage uniforms and medals from family service members. My family had no veterans except me. That night, I laid out my dress uniform on the bed. The fabric still held creases from the dry cleaner's press. Ribbons aligned precisely above the left pocket. My fingers traced the aircrew wings, the reserve component's achievement medal, the humanitarian service ribbon from the Kentucky ice storms, each one earned in cockpit hours, in lives pulled from wreckage, in nights when I flew through weather that made commercial pilots land. "I'll stay quiet until after the ceremony," I whispered to the empty room, practicing the words I'd say to my parents. "Just this once. Let me have this moment without your poison." But even as I made that promise to myself, I was already preparing for war. The scanner app on my phone, the cloud storage with backup folders, the consultation scheduled with Delia Park, the only estate attorney in 3 counties who didn't belong to my mother's book club. The evidence was organized, digitized, ready. Because I knew my parents. I knew that my achievement was their threat, my recognition their humiliation. In Pine Hollow, reputation was currency, and they'd been spending counterfeit bills for 25 years. My truth would bankrupt them. The uniform went back in its garment bag, hung in the locked closet with my backup documentation. Through the window, a controlled burn glowed on the Henderson property, smoke drifting across the moon. The smell of burning cornstalks crept through the window sills, acrid, familiar, like endings and beginnings all at once. 3 weeks until the ceremony. 3 weeks to hold my tongue, keep my head down, let them think they'd won. 3 weeks to finalize Plan B, the one where I stopped being their victim and started being their reckoning. The manipulation started when I was 16, the year the combine harvester threw a rod through its engine block 2 days before harvest. I'd been at State Math Olympics, bringing home a trophy that would later gather dust in the attic. By the time I returned, my father had already spread the word I'd snuck off with boys, left him to handle everything alone, cost us half the corn yield. The repair receipt dated 3 weeks before harvest told a different story, but nobody asked to see it. That became their pattern. Every achievement I earned got twisted into abandonment. Every success became selfishness. When I joined the Air Force Reserve after college, my mother told her prayer circle I'd run off to play war games instead of helping with Dad's back surgery scheduled 3 months after I'd already enlisted. When I started Summit and Crew Logistics with my savings from deployment, they told the Farmers Association I'd stolen the startup money from the family account. The financial entanglement ran deeper than just their lies. The farm's checking account still listed me as a co-signer from when I'd turned 18, their requirement for me to contribute to the family legacy. They'd use my signature on equipment loans without telling me, my credit score taking hits whenever they missed payments. I'd removed myself from new accounts, but the old obligations lingered like splinters under skin. 2 years ago, during the worst drought in decades, I'd covered their operating loan payment $12,000 that depleted my emergency fund. They'd sworn it was for seed and fertilizer, showed me invoices from the co-op. I found out later from Tommy Henderson that they'd bought his restored 70s Corvette that same week, told everyone it was an inheritance from Marlene's aunt. Marlene's aunt had been dead since '93. The Tuesday before my ceremony, I drove out to check on Kyle at university. He met me at a coffee shop off campus, shoulders hunched like he was already apologizing. "They're planning something," he said, stirring sugar into his cup with mechanical precision. "Dad called me drunk Sunday night. Said something about putting you in your place and protecting the family name. What else? Mom's been in the attic, the locked section where she keeps Gran's things, and Dad bought camping fuel even though their Coleman's been broken for 5 years. My stomach turned to ice. The insurance policy. They added coverage for military collectibles. Kyle's face went pale. Harper. They wouldn't burn my uniforms and claim the insurance money, file a claim for fictional family heirlooms. I pulled out my phone, showed him the screenshots. $50,000 rider, Kyle. Premium payments started 3 months ago. Jesus Christ. There's more. I opened another folder. Property taxes are due in 60 days. They're 18 months behind. The county's threatening tax sale. And the operating loan from County Ag. They missed 4 payments. Bank's been sending default notices. Kyle rubbed his face. How do you know all this? Public records for the taxes. As for the bank, remember when Dad had kidney stones last year, I drove him home. He was high on pain meds. Gave me his passwords to check if a payment had cleared. I've been monitoring ever since. That's illegal gray area at worst. Protecting myself at best. Kyle, if they destroy my uniforms, file a fraudulent insurance claim, and I can prove it. You could take everything. I met his eyes. Only if they force me to. That night, I met with Delia Park in her office above the old bank building. She was 63, sharp as surgical steel, and had once cleaned out her ex-husband's hidden assets with ruthless precision. Fraudulent insurance claims are federal crimes, she said, reviewing my documentation. If they burn your property and file a claim, that's wire fraud once insurance pays out. But Harper, you need contemporaneous evidence. Pictures of your uniforms in your possession, proof of the destruction, documentation of their financial desperation. I have cameras. Front door, garage, and one facing the backyard. Smart. Now, about the farm. With tax liens and mortgage defaults looming, if criminal charges get filed, the bank calls the loan. Exactly. I can set up a trust. Keep your name off the initial paperwork. If the property goes to auction, the trust bids. Clean, legal, untraceable until after closing. I signed where she indicated, my signature steady despite the tremor in my chest. I don't want to do this. Delia. Honey, they've been doing it to you for 16 years. You're just finally keeping score. Driving home. I passed the farmstead. Mom's silhouette moved past the lit attic window, carrying boxes. Dad's truck was parked by the burn pit, tailgate down. Something covered with a tarp in the bed. The security light caught the edge of red camping fuel canisters. I pulled over a mile down, hands shaking as I logged into the cloud storage. Verified all 3 cameras were recording. Backup battery packs engaged. Then I texted Kyle. Stay at school this weekend. Whatever happens, you weren't here. His response came quickly. Harper, I'm sorry. For all of it. For letting you protect me. 2 more semesters. I typed back. Then you're free. But sitting in my car, watching the farmstead's lights through the distance, I knew none of us would be free until the truth burned brighter than any fire they could set. The call came at 11:43 p.m., the night before my ceremony. I'd been lying awake, dress uniform hanging on the bathroom door, when my phone lit up with motion alerts from all 3 cameras. Through the app, I watched my mother cross the yard carrying my garment bag, the one she'd taken from my locked closet with the spare key I'd foolishly let them keep for emergencies. I didn't move. I stayed in bed, phone recording the feed, as she emptied the contents into the fire pit. My father followed with the shadow box containing my ribbons, the challenge coins from joint operations, the folded flag from my first commander. They doused it all with camping fuel, the liquid gleaming in the infrared light. The match flare was small, almost beautiful, before it became a column of destruction. Polyester melted fast, wool sparked and curled, the metallic ribbons giving off toxic green flames. My mother stood back, filming with her phone, held vertical amateur footage she could claim was destroying old Halloween costumes or thrift store finds. I forced myself to breathe, to document, to not drive over there and pull my service record from the flames with my bare hands. At 6:15 a.m., my father's Facebook post went live. With heavy hearts, we must share that our daughter was dishonorably discharged from military service for insubordination. We're returning her fraudulent medals to proper authorities and asking for prayers during this difficult time. 57 shares in the first hour. Comments flooded in sympathy for my parents. Condemnation for me. I always knew something was off about her, wrote Janet from the post office. Stolen valor is disgusting, added Tom from the hardware store, whose own son had washed out of basic training twice. My mother's performance peaked at 7:30 a.m. when she called the ceremony organizers, her voice cracking with manufactured tears. I heard it all through the recording app she'd pocket-dialed me by accident. We just discovered Harper's been lying about her service. We found discharge papers, falsified documents. We're destroyed. She's been wearing uniforms she bought online, attending drills she was never assigned to. We burned everything to prevent further embarrassment to real service members. The lies flowed so smoothly, so naturally. I wondered if she believed them herself. The ceremony coordinator called me an hour later, voice carefully professional. Ms. Lane, we've received concerning information about your service record, pending verification. We're postponing your appearance. I understand, I said, already forwarding my complete service record, my CAC card photo, my latest orders from EDR Command. Please verify with Major Rodriguez at Air Rescue Group. His direct line is in the documentation. I dressed in civilian clothes, dark jeans and a blazer, and drove to the farmstead. The burn pit still smoked, chemical and acrid. I parked in view of the road, letting passing neighbors see me there, then walked to the pile with evidence bags and nitrile gloves. The metal buttons from my uniform had survived, warped but recognizable with partial insignia visible, Ribbon fragments clung to blackened safety pins. The challenge coin from Operation Flood Relief had melted into an abstract medallion, but the unit number remained legible. I photographed everything in place, then collected samples, each bag labeled with time and GPS coordinates. My father emerged from the house, coffee mug in hand like a prop. "You're trespassing." "I'm collecting destroyed federal property. My uniforms and service items are protected under Title 10, Section 771 of U.S. Code." I held up my phone, recording openly. "Would you like to explain why they're in your burn pit?" "We burned trash, old Halloween costumes with Air Force buttons, with ribbons that match my official service record." I pulled up a photo on my phone me in the same uniform at last month's drill, dated and location stamped. "This uniform," his jaw worked. "You're not welcome here." "Earl," I said, using his first name like a stranger would, "you posted on social media that I was dishonorably discharged. That's defamation per se. You claimed to burn fraudulent metals. That's admission of destroying federal property. And when the insurance adjuster asks about that $50,000 military memorabilia claim you're planning, you'll either admit to fraud or admit to destroying my legitimate service property. Which crime would you prefer?" The mug shook in his hand. "You can't prove anything." I held up the evidence bags. "Chemical analysis will show military-grade fabric and metals. My security footage shows your wife carrying my garment bag at 11:43 p.m. The metadata on her video matches the burn pattern in this pit. Your Facebook post establishes motive and confession." My mother appeared in the doorway, housecoat clutched tight. "Harper, honey, let's discuss this inside. Marlene, you called the State Reserve Coordinator at 7:32 a.m. and made false official statements about my service. That's a federal crime. I have the recording you pocket-dialed me." Her face went white as old paper. "Here's what happens now," I said, voice steady as a flight approach. "You have 2 hours to post public retractions on every platform where you spread lies. You will call the ceremony coordinator and admit you lied. You will pay for replacement uniforms and medals retail is about $3,000. Or I file charges today." "You wouldn't," my father growled. Family doesn't burn their daughter's military service record for insurance money. But here we are." I turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and that insurance claim you're planning, I already notified State Farm's fraud department. They're particularly interested in the timeline you adding the rider 3 months ago, then destroying the only actual military items on the property." Walking back to my car, I heard my mother sobbing real tears this time, my father shouting about lawyers, about rights, about ungrateful children. The neighbors were watching from windows and driveways, phones probably recording. By noon, the truth was spreading faster than their lies ever had. And I hadn't even played my final card yet. Deputy Sloan found me at the Cedar Ridge Diner at 2 p.m., sliding into the booth across from me with the careful movements of a man who'd spent 30 years avoiding sudden gestures. He'd been a volunteer firefighter before joining the sheriff's department, still carried himself like smoke might suddenly fill the room. "Harper, I pulled the security footage from the gas station. Your mother bought camping fuel at 10:20 p.m. last night. Paid cash, but the cameras don't lie." I pushed a folder across the table. My evidence file, camera footage, recordings, the destroyed items. He flipped through, professional mask slipping when he saw the melted challenge coin. "This is from the Millbrook tornado response. I was on ground support that day. 17 lives saved. Now it's evidence in an insurance fraud case. And destruction of government property. Filing false reports. Defamation with malicious intent." He closed the folder. "Harper, with what's here, the prosecutor could file charges today, but you know what that means. They lose the farm. They lose everything." Delia Park arrived 15 minutes later, followed by Mr. Kincaid from the tax assessor's office. We'd chosen the diner deliberately public, visible, letting the town see us assembled like a war council. "The tax sale notice gets posted tomorrow," Kincaid said, sliding documents across the table. 18 months delinquent, Total with penalties is $43,000. They have 30 days to pay or the property goes to auction. Delia added her papers to the pile. County Agricultural Credit is moving to accelerate the loan based on the moral turpitude clause, criminal charges for fraud, violate their lending terms. Once State Farm confirms the fraudulent claim attempt, the bank can call the full balance, $320,000, due immediately. The Heritage Trust is ready, I asked. Established yesterday. You're listed as secondary trustee, not primary. When the property goes to auction, the trust bids. Clean paper trail, completely legal. Sloane's phone buzzed. He read, then looked up. Your father just called 911 claiming you're harassing them, stealing from the property. Want me to respond? Let another deputy take it, but make sure they know about the evidence I collected from destroyed federal property. By 4 p.m., the counterattack intensified. My mother had called every church in 3 counties, claiming I was having a mental breakdown, that I'd threatened them, that my military service had damaged me. My father contacted a lawyer in the state capital, Brian Hutchins, who'd gotten 2 drunk driving charges reduced for him over the years. The EDR commander called at 5:15 p.m. Captain Lane, I've been fielding calls all day about your service record. I've sent official verification to every inquiry, but I need to know, are you safe? Yes, sir. My parents destroyed my uniforms and are attempting insurance fraud. Local law enforcement is handling it. Do you need JAG assistance? No, sir. I have civilian counsel, but I request replacement uniforms for the ceremony, if it's still happening. It's happening. The state coordinator called back, mortified about the confusion. You're speaking at 2 p.m. tomorrow. New uniforms will be at your address by 0900. That evening, I sat in Delia's office with printed screenshots covering the conference table. My parents' Facebook posts had evolved from accusations to outright fantasy I'd supposedly stolen farm equipment, threatened them with violence, brought criminal elements to town. Each post was time-stamped, archived, notarized. This is good, Delia said. Every lie they post strengthens your defamation case. But Harper, you need to make a decision. Do you want the farm, or do you want justice? What's the difference? If you only want the farm, we proceed with the tax sale and foreclosure. Let the financial crimes stay civil. You get the property. They get nothing but eviction. If you want justice, Sloane files criminal charges tomorrow. They might get jail time, but it complicates the property transfer. I thought about 16 years of lies, about Kyle keeping his head down at university, afraid to come home, about every achievement I'd earned being twisted into abandonment, every success poisoned into selfishness. I want both. File the charges after I secure the property. Delia smiled like a shark. That's my girl. My phone rang. Kyle, voice shaking. Harper, Mom just called. She wants me to say you've been stealing from my college fund, that you've been violent. She says if I don't back them up, they'll stop paying tuition. Kyle, listen. I have 2 semesters of your tuition in an account. You're covered. Don't lie for them. They're my parents. They're criminals who burned my military uniforms for insurance money. Kyle, I need you to stay neutral. Don't pick sides publicly. Just stay at school and let this play out. Silence. Then, the recorder on Mom's phone. When she pocket dialed you, she does that a lot. I might have recordings from the last 2 years. Things they've said about you, about the money you sent, about their plans. My throat tightened. Send them to Delia. Everything. Harper, after you get the farm, what happens to them? I looked out the window at Pine Hollow, the grain elevator, the church spire, the water tower painted with our high school mascot. They made their choice when they lit the match. Now they live with the ashes. By 9 p.m., the battle lines were drawn. My parents had their lawyer, their lies, their rapidly shrinking circle of believers. I had evidence, law enforcement, financial leverage, and something they'd never expected the patients to let them destroy themselves while I documented every moment. Tomorrow, I would stand at the Capitol in a fresh uniform and tell the truth about saving lives in floods and tornadoes. and they would sit in Pine Hollow, waiting for the knock on the door that would begin their ending. The Cedar Ridge County Fair opened at 10 a.m. Saturday, 3 days after the ceremony where I'd stood in my replacement uniform and told the truth about pulling families from floodwater. My parents hadn't attended, they were too busy meeting with their third lawyer after the first two saw my evidence file and declined representation. I arrived at the fair at noon, walking straight to the agricultural pavilion where the Farm Family of the Year presentation would happen at 2 p.m. Earl and Marlene Lane were still listed in the program, their photo from last year showing them in matching plaid shirts, standing beside their restored John Deere like it wasn't leveraged 3 times over. The Hendersons nodded as I passed. The Mitchells looked away. Janet from the post office actually stepped behind a corn dog stand to avoid me. The town was divided, those who'd seen my evidence online, and those clinging to 25 years of my parents' fabrications. Deputy Sloan stood near the stage, uniform crisp despite the August heat. He gave me a slight nod. Delia Park sat in the front row, briefcase at her feet. Mr. Kincaid from the tax office was at the registration table, an innocuous presence with devastating paperwork. At 1:45 p.m., my parents arrived. They'd dressed for sympathy, my mother in her church dress, my father in his only suit. They climbed the stage like martyrs, accepting the polite applause with practiced humility. Commissioner Reynolds began his introduction at 2 p.m. sharp. The Lane family has been part of Cedar Ridge for 4 generations. I stood up, not dramatically, not aggressively, just stood. Commissioner Reynolds, I need 3 minutes. The crowd went silent. My mother gripped my father's arm. You can't be here, my father said into the microphone. There's a restraining order. No, there isn't. I held up my phone, connected to the pavilion's display screen. But there is this. The first image appeared my mother carrying my garment bag at 11:43 p.m. Timestamp visible. The second, the fire pit, flames consuming military fabric. The third, the insurance claim form for $50,000 in military memorabilia, dated 3 months before the fire. I didn't speak over the images. Didn't need to. The metadata was embedded in each one, the evidence chain clear as summer lightning. This is harassment, my mother started. The fourth image stopped her the email from EDR confirming my active service, my commendation, my invitation to the ceremony they'd tried to sabotage. 3 days ago, I said, voice carrying without the microphone. I stood at the state capitol and received recognition for 4 years of air rescue service. My parents told you I was discharged. They lied. They burned my uniforms for insurance money, and now they're being investigated for federal fraud. Commissioner Reynolds stepped back from the podium. The crowd shifted, phones coming out, recording everything. My father grabbed the microphone. She's trying to steal our farm. Our daughter is stealing from us. The farm that's 18 months behind on taxes. Kincaid stood up, holding a red folder. The $43,000 you owe the county. The tax sale notice that posts Monday. Delia Rose next. Or the $320,000 you owe county agricultural credit. The loan you defaulted on 4 months ago while buying a Corvette and an F-350. The crowd's murmur grew to a rumble. These were farmers, people who knew what defaulted operating loans meant, who understood that paying for toys while crying poverty was the cardinal sin of agricultural life. My mother's mask finally cracked. You vindictive little bitch. Marlene. Sloane's voice cut through. You're being recorded. Again. I pulled up the final piece, Kyle's recordings. My mother's voice filled the pavilion. Tell everyone Harper refused to help. Never mention the $8,000 she sent. We need that money for the truck, but everyone has to think she abandoned us. Then my father. When she deploys next month, we'll say she went AWOL. Post it everywhere. Ruin her reputation before she can ruin ours. Commissioner Reynolds took the microphone. Earl, Marlene, please step down from the stage. This is our award. No. Reynolds' voice was granite. It's not. The Farm Family of the Year represents our values: integrity, honesty, community, Please leave." They didn't move until Sloane stepped forward. Then they descended, my mother stumbling, my father's face purple with rage. The crowd parted as they passed, the silence following them like judgment. I sat back down, didn't smile, didn't gloat, just sat while Commissioner Reynolds apologized to the crowd and announced the Hendersons as the new recipients. After the presentation, I found myself surrounded not by supporters, but by the curious, the suspicious, those who wanted to pick at the drama like crows at carrion. "Why would you do this to your parents?" asked Reverend Coleman. "I didn't do anything to them. I just stopped letting them do it to me." But family. Family doesn't burn your military uniforms and claim you never served. Family doesn't steal your deployment pay while telling everyone you're selfish. Family doesn't try to commit insurance fraud using your service as the weapon. Janet from the post office pushed forward. "Your mother says you're lying about the recordings." Delia's voice cut in. "The recordings are authenticated and submitted as evidence. Forensic analysis confirms they're genuine. Anyone claiming otherwise can explain that to a judge." The crowd began dispersing, but I heard the whispers starting. The story was shifting, truth replacing decades of manipulation. By evening, everyone would know. By Monday, when the tax notice posted, the whole county would see the truth in black and white. My parents were sitting in their truck at the far end of the parking lot, watching as their world unraveled one conversation at a time. I walked past without looking. Sloane beside me. "They'll fight dirty now," he warned. "Cornered animals always do. Let them." I pulled out my keys. Every lie they tell, every move they make, just adds to the evidence file. "They already lit the match. Tom, now we just document the burn." Monday morning, Delia's office became a war room. Legal documents covered every surface the Lane Heritage Trust papers, bank notices, tax assessments, criminal evidence files. The trust structure was elegant in its simplicity, a private entity with Delia's paralegal as primary trustee, me as secondary, specifically created for agricultural heritage preservation. No direct connection to me visible until after property transfer. County Agricultural Credit called their loan at 8 a.m. Delia announced, hanging up her phone. "Your parents have 72 hours to pay $320,000 or face immediate foreclosure." "State Farm?" I asked. "Fraud investigation opened. They found the claim draft your father tried to submit online Saturday night, $50,000 for destroyed military collection. He attached your mother's video as proof of loss." She smiled grimly. "The metadata showing it was filmed during the destruction really impressed their investigators." Kincaid walked in with fresh printouts. "Tax sale notice posted at the courthouse and published in the Cedar Ridge Gazette this morning. Minimum bid is $43,000 to clear the tax debt. Auction date is September 15th, 3 weeks from today. But with the bank foreclosure, the bank sale happens first, September 10th. Here's where it gets interesting." He spread out a timeline. "If the bank forecloses first, they take the property subject to the tax lien. They'll have to pay the back taxes or lose it at tax sale. Most buyers won't touch that mess." Delia pulled up banking regulations on her laptop. "County Ag won't want to hold the property. They'll dump it at foreclosure for the loan balance or less. The Heritage Trust bids minimum to cover their debt. Then we immediately pay the tax lien to clear the title." "Using what funds?" I asked. "The trust has a credit line secured by your business assets and my firm's guarantee. Once we have clear title, we refinance with a conventional mortgage. Your company's revenue more than supports it." Deputy Sloane arrived at noon with updates. "The prosecutor's filing charges Wednesday fraud, destruction of government property, false reporting. Your parents' lawyer is pushing for a plea deal." "What kind of deal?" "Misdemeanor false reporting, probation, restitution. Drop the felony fraud charges." "No." The word came out harder than intended. "They burned my uniforms to steal $50,000 from insurance. That's felony fraud. I want it on record." That afternoon, I drove past the farmstead. A new sign stood by the road. "Save Lane Farm, stop the lies." My mother's car was parked at the church. Through the Grove Baptist Facebook page, I could see her post from an hour ago. Prayer warriors needed our daughter has turned against God and family. My phone rang. Brian Hutchins, my parents' lawyer. Ms. Lane, your parents are prepared to make a settlement offer. I'm listening. They'll publicly apologize and transfer the farm to you in exchange for dropping all criminal charges and paying their relocation costs. I almost laughed. They have no equity in the farm. The bank's foreclosing. The taxes are delinquent. They're offering me their debt in exchange for a felony pass. They're your parents. They're criminals who destroyed federal property and attempted insurance fraud. No deal. You'll regret this. I regret waiting 16 years to stand up to them. Tuesday brought escalation. My mother filed a complaint with the state licensing board claiming I was mentally unstable and shouldn't have access to aircraft. My father told the Farm Bureau I'd been secretly sabotaging their equipment for years. Both claims required responses, documentation, more evidence added to my defamation case. But Tuesday also brought allies. 3 veterans from the VFW offered to testify about seeing me at official reserve functions. The owner of Cedar Ridge Aviation confirmed I'd been flying rescue missions during the exact times my parents claimed I was playing soldier. Even Janet from the post office admitted she'd seen me in uniform at the post office, mailing packages to deployed units. Wednesday morning, Delia implemented Phase 2. The Heritage Trust filed a quiet intervention in the foreclosure case, claiming interest as a potential buyer. Simultaneously, we submitted the tax certificate application, paying the initial deposit to secure first position at the tax sale. Your parents don't know about the trust yet, Delia explained. They think if they can somehow stop the bank foreclosure, they save the farm. They don't realize the tax sale is inevitable. That evening, I met Kyle at a truck stop halfway between the university and Pine Hollow. He looked exhausted, older than his 20 years. They called 17 times today, he said. Mom wants me to testify that you're violent. Dad wants me to say you stole from the farm accounts. You don't have to do anything. I already did. He pulled out a notarized statement. I wrote down everything I witnessed. The money you sent that they claimed never came. The lies about your service. The night they planned the burning, I was on speaker when Dad called, drunk. I recorded it. I read through his statement, throat tight. This could end your relationship with them. Harper. It ended when they lit that fire. I just didn't want to admit it. Thursday. The bank posted foreclosure notices on the property. Big orange papers on every building, legal and humiliating. My mother responded by starting a GoFundMe, Save Our Family Farm from Vindictive Daughter. It raised $300 before GoFundMe shut it down for terms violations Delia had sent them the fraud investigation documents. By Friday, my parents were cornered. Their lawyer withdrew representation. The criminal charges were filed and public. The foreclosure was proceeding. The tax sale was scheduled. And the Heritage Trust was positioned to acquire everything they'd spent their lives lying to protect. September 10th arrived with the kind of crisp morning that made corn silk shine like fiber optic cables. The foreclosure auction was scheduled for 10 a.m. on the courthouse steps. I sat in Delia's office at 9, watching the street fill with curious locals and potential bidders. Remember, Delia said, adjusting her briefcase. You stay here. The paralegal bids for the trust. No visible connection to you until after closing. Through the window, I saw my parents arrive at 9:30. My mother wore black like she was attending a funeral. My father's face was stone, aged 10 years and 3 weeks. Their last attempt at salvation stood beside them, my mother's brother from Nebraska, checkbook visible in his shirt pocket. At 9:45, my phone buzzed, a text from my uncle. Your parents say you're stealing their land. I'm bidding to keep it in the family. I forwarded it to Delia, who smiled. Let him. He doesn't know about the tax lien. The auction began precisely at 10. Through the courthouse live stream, I watched the auctioneer read the legal description of the property 180 acres, multiple structures, subject to all existing liens and encumbrances. That last phrase was crucial. County Agricultural Credit's representative started the bidding at $300,000. My uncle raised to $310. Another farmer bid $3.15. The Heritage Trust paralegal waited, patient as a sniper. At $3.30, my uncle started sweating. At $3.40, the other farmer dropped out. At $3.50, my uncle's hands shook as he raised his paddle. $360,000, he called out, voice cracking. The Heritage Trust bid $365. My uncle turned to my parents. Frantic whispered conversation visible even on the grainy stream. My father grabbed his shoulder, my mother crying now, real tears this time. But my uncle shook his head, stepped back, paddle down. $365 going once, twice. Sold to bidder number 7. The Heritage Trust had won, but we weren't done. 11A, the tax sale began in the same location. Fewer bidders now, most didn't understand the complexity of buying tax-distressed property. The auctioneer explained that this was for a tax certificate, not immediate ownership. The property owner had 1 year to redeem by paying taxes plus 18% interest, except the property owner was now technically county agricultural credit, who'd just lost money on the foreclosure. They wouldn't pay $43,000 in taxes on a property they'd already dumped. The Heritage Trust bid the minimum $43,000 and won unopposed. By noon, we controlled both the foreclosure deed and the tax certificate. The farm was ours, pending standard redemption periods that no one would exercise. At 12:30, I met Sloan at the property. My parents were still there, standing in the driveway like they couldn't comprehend leaving. Their car was packed, boxes visible through the windows. "You have 72 hours to vacate," Sloan told them, serving the eviction notice. "Sheriff's order." My father turned to me. "You did this. You destroyed us. You destroyed yourselves the night you burned my uniforms." "It was just cloth," my mother screamed. "Just stupid pieces of cloth. It was my service, my honor, my truth, and you burned it for money that was never yours. We raised you. You raised me to be your scapegoat. Every failure, every debt, every bad decision all my fault. The broken combine when I was at Math Olympics. The drought losses when I was at basic training. The tax debt when I was flying rescue missions. Always my fault, never yours." My father stepped forward. Sloan moved between us. "Earl, you're under investigation for fraud. Don't add assault to your charges. This is our land. 4 generations. 4 generations of debt," I interrupted. "Mortgaged twice, pledged as collateral 3 times, nearly lost to taxes annually. You couldn't even maintain it without stealing the money I sent to help." A news van pulled up. Cedar Ridge Gazette had been covering the story since the fair. My parents saw the camera and suddenly deflated. Their public was watching. The performance was over. "Where will we go?" my mother asked. But she wasn't asking me. She was asking the camera, the town, anyone who might offer sympathy. "Uncle Ray has room in Nebraska," I said. "He offered to help you relocate. Take it." They left at 2 p.m., my father driving, my mother not looking back. I stood on the porch, my porch now, and watched their taillights disappear where the county road bent toward town. Delia arrived at 3 with final paperwork. The prosecutor offered them a deal. Plead guilty to misdemeanor fraud, 2 years probation, $20,000 in restitution. They took it. $20,000 for destroying my military career. $20,000 they'll never be able to pay, which means probation extends indefinitely. They can't leave Nebraska without permission, can't access credit, can't file insurance claims without scrutiny. Harper, they're finished. That evening, Kyle arrived from university. We walked through the farmhouse, empty now except for furniture too heavy for my parents to move. In the kitchen, I placed the melted challenge coin on the windowsill, the one piece of evidence I'd kept. "You won," Kyle said. "No, I just stopped losing." "What now?" "Now we make this place worth something. Real worth. Not leveraged debt and borrowed pride. Your name's on the trust too, as beneficiary. This farm is ours, yours, and mine. The way it should have been before they poisoned it with lies." Kyle picked up the challenge coin, turned it over in the fading light. They'll never forgive you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm done asking them for anything. As the sun set over the cornfields, I stood in the yard where my uniforms had burned. The ground was still black, grass dead in a perfect circle. Come spring, I'd plant something new there, something honest, something that would grow without lies. The Heritage Trust sign went up the next morning. Harper Lane Rescue Farm. Truth in plain sight. Finally. The October wind carried the scent of dried corn and old smoke as I stood on the porch of what was now legally the Harper Lane Rescue Farm. 3 weeks had passed since my parents' departure. 3 weeks since the Heritage Trust sign went up along the county road. The harvest moon hung low, casting long shadows across fields that had seen 4 generations of Lanes, but only one who'd finally told the truth. Deputy Sloane's cruiser pulled up the drive at 4 p.m., followed by Delia's sedan. Behind them, a small convoy, Kyle's truck, the bank representative's SUV, and Commissioner Reynolds in his official vehicle. Today was the final transfer, the last signatures, the end of every legal challenge my parents might have imagined. We gathered in the kitchen where my grandmother's china still sat in the cabinet, where the walls held ghost rectangles of removed family photos, on the table deeds, titles, certificates paper proof of what fire couldn't burn. The probate court dismissed your parents' last appeal this morning, Delia announced, sliding documents across the scarred wood. They claimed emotional distress, and elder abuse judge threw it out in 12 minutes. The bank representative cleared his throat. County Agricultural Credit has officially released all claims. The Heritage Trust's payment cleared. Liens are lifted. You own this property free and clear. Commissioner Reynolds added his folder to the pile. The counties received full payment on back taxes plus penalties. No outstanding obligations. And Harper. He met my eyes. The Fair Board voted unanimously. You're being recognized as Agricultural Citizen of the Year for your service and for your courage in standing up to fraud. I signed where they pointed, each signature reclaiming another piece of what had been stolen through years of lies. Kyle signed as beneficiary, his hand steady despite the weight of choosing truth over the parents who'd raised us both in manipulation. As the officials prepared to leave, Sloane pulled me aside. Your parents settled in Nebraska. Your uncle called there telling everyone you forged documents, that the military records were fake, that they're victims of a conspiracy. Let them. Nebraska can figure out who they really are soon enough. After everyone left, Kyle and I stood in the yard where the burn pile still scarred the earth. I'd had it tested soil contaminated with accelerants and melted synthetic materials. It would take work to make anything grow there again. You know what I keep thinking about? Kyle asked. That night, Mom called me, drunk, saying you were always Dad's biggest disappointment, how he'd planned to leave the farm to me alone, cut you out completely. Probably true. But I would have given you half? You know that, right? I know. But they would have poisoned that too, made us fight over it, destroyed us both to keep control of the narrative. A truck rumbled up the drive, Tommy Henderson with his son, both carrying tools. Then another, the Mitchells with lumber. Janet from the post office in her husband's pickup, bed full of seedlings. What's this? I asked. Tommy smiled, the first real warmth I'd seen from any neighbor since the fire. Barn raising, modern style. We're fixing what needs fixed. Community takes care of its own. Harper. Even when it takes us too long to see who really belongs. By sunset, 24 people had shown up. Veterans from the VFW, farmers who'd quietly questioned my parents' stories for years, even Reverend Coleman with his congregation's youth group. They worked without asking, replacing broken boards, fixing gates, clearing the contaminated soil from the burn site. As darkness fell, someone started a bonfire, a clean one, fed with old fence posts and deadfall. Nothing toxic, nothing hidden. We stood around it, sharing beer and stories, the smoke rising straight and honest into the star-filled sky. You did what none of us could, Tommy said quietly. We all knew something was off, the way they talked about you, the stories that never quite matched. But they were pillars of the community, and you were just the disappointing daughter, the scapegoat. We should have seen it, should have questioned it. I'm sorry, Harper. I looked around the circle of faces lit by firelight, my new truth. My real community, built on evidence instead of lies. Don't apologize. Just remember. Next time someone's story doesn't add up, next time the victim gets blamed for everything while the accusers profit, remember this. Remember that sometimes the pillars are rotten, holding up nothing but their own decay. Near midnight, after everyone had gone home, Kyle and I sat on the porch steps. The house was quiet, peaceful in a way it had never been when our parents filled it with their manufactured dramas. "What will you do with it?" he asked. "The farm. Run it right. No debt except what's sustainable. No lies about yields or profits. Maybe set up a program for other veterans, the ones whose families didn't believe their service either." Huh, I touched the melted challenge coin in my pocket. Its warped surface familiar now. Make it mean something real. And them our parents. They made their choice that night by the fire. They can live with the ashes of it. A shooting star crossed the sky, brief and brilliant. Kyle made a wish I could tell by the way he closed his eyes, but I didn't wish for anything. I'd learned the hard way that justice doesn't come from wishes. It comes from evidence, from standing your ground, from refusing to let lies burn brighter than truth. I stood, brushing dust from my jeans. Come on, tomorrow we start actually farming this place. And Kyle, we're going to do it without burning anything that matters. Inside, I hung my new uniform in the front closet where everyone could see it. No locked doors, no hidden truths. On the kitchen windowsill, the melted challenge coin caught the moonlight, transformed from destruction into proof that some things survive, even the flames meant to erase them. The farm was mine now, not because I'd stolen it, but because I'd finally stopped letting them steal from me. Every acre bought with documentation, every building claimed through legal process, every inch of ground taken back from those who'd poisoned it with lies. I placed the sign by the door, Harper Lane Rescue Farm, established 2024, built on truth. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm curious, where in the world are you listening to this from? Drop a comment and let me know if this story resonated with you. Please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. Have you ever had to stand up against family lies or fight for your truth? I'd love to hear your experiences. Remember, sometimes the hardest battles are with the people who were supposed to protect us. But justice, real justice, is worth fighting for.